So here's a fairly obvious question, but we'll try and answer it for you anyway. How do young South Africans feel about this month's World Cup, which is now well underway? What impact, I wonder, is this going to have on brands? Big question as people flock to shopping centres, to pubs, clubs and shebeens. Well, with me now from the research outfit, Monati Fellas, calls himself an idea jockey. Musa Kalenga, welcome back to the programme. Nice to talk to you. You're suggesting that the brand party has already started.
Most definitely. It started a while back. I think a lot of people have been creating their own World Cup. And I think what we find with young people in general, they take ideas and they personalize them. So a lot of young people have been internalizing the fact that there's going to be various different things happening. Most of them kind of came to the realization that the sticks and the stones of the World Cup won't really get to the average man on the street. So they had to be very proactive about bringing it to themselves. So they're very excited about it indeed.
How's it going to change the way in which they interact with brands?
Well, I think primarily because the World Cup is about an experience. Young people are very much driven by those kind of things. We see the advent of mobile technology, meaning they like to capture moments. That's what life is about. So they're going to be driving a lot to being able to create memorable experiences for themselves and for their peers. In the stadiums and in the places where there's going to be football activity, if you've got access to that, that's fantastic. But I think the primary thing is that a lot of people want to be able to internalize the concept and the idea of the World Cup further than just the game. I think a lot of interesting groups have sprung up in social media spaces about following various different soccer stars as an example, and that's completely unrelated to football, but it's all about the celebrity spotting culture.
Of course, this is the first World Cup that really is going to be dominated by that social media space.
Correct, and it's going to present itself some interesting opportunities and some scary opportunities for brands as well. I think in general, brands have to be bold enough, especially with youth, to hand over their brand and expect the youth to play with it and kind of give it back to them in a fashion or form which they feel fit. So it's going to require a lot of brand managers to be quite progressive about their thinking. A lot of what they need to be doing is creating environments as opposed to be pushing messages. The great old marketing faux pas is to try and approach young people and tell them that you're cool and that kind of stuff. So try not to do any of that.
Yeah, that's real brand suicide, isn't it? Yeah. You also make a very interesting point. If you're pushing brands or you're advertising brands, it's not about pushing sport, which you suggest is almost cheesy.
Correct. It is very cheesy. I mean, a lot of our clients and a lot of brands that you see now have just slapped a soccer ball onto their creative and they think, wow, we're 20
boxes ticked, we can move on.
That's rubbish. Or slapped flags onto it or whatever it is. And you find that a lot of consumers, young consumers, are quite intelligent. So they look at that kind of thing and they think, as I said, it's very cheesy. It doesn't appeal to them because you haven't even taken time to think about how possibly you can incorporate your brand into the idea of football or into the spirit of sport. So it's more intelligent for you to think about those things. And in most cases, try and maybe move away from the sport. I think a lot of brands, there's no direct fit as far as the World Cup is concerned. If you're not a sports brand, in inverted commas, what do you do? So the idea is to start to think a little bit more lateral. You look at brands like Nando's who sell food, and they've done a fantastic radio campaign at the moment that have moved completely away from sports in its sense, but they've captured the spirit and they still appeal to South Africans. So that's the trick there, is to look out for those threads that appeal at a cultural level to young South Africans.
And having said that, once you've captured the thread, you also suggest the brands have got to be nimble.
Correct.
You've created this word called nowism.
Correct. Yeah, nowism, as you know, it's about slapping something in a microwave and getting it immediately. So young people, as we know today, want to have results instantaneously. So in being nimble, you need to be able to adjust for this particular environment. What this means is that we may not get it right off the bat, but the fact of the matter is the environment changes and you need to be able to respond to it, especially with young people. One concept we've come across now is called the pub car, in inverted commas, and we spoke to a bunch of young people who said, what are you guys going to be doing during the World Cup? They said, well, we're not really going to go to the stadiums because we can't afford it. We're not really going to be watching the games, but we're going to be pub carring. So we're like, what is pub carring? And they realized it's going to be the ability to move around mobily, just put all your party, all your gear in the car and just make your way to wherever it happens.
And find the place.
And find the place, or create the place yourself. So that speaks to that ability to have things happen immediately, to have things happen on my terms and in my time, which is very important.
And a final question to you, all of this is underpinned by patriotism.
Correct. There's a very, very strong move. I think we asked the question, what do you think and what is your opinion of the Bafana team? And we had our preconceived ideas of what that would be, but we found that 3 months ago there was a silent patriotism. So 46% of the respondents said that shame they try very hard. That was one of the responses they had on the sheet. So this said to us that a lot of people might think that the performance wasn't great, but at the end of the day, they're still a national team which we support. So we found that spirit has been augmented by the good performance that we've seen of late. And you see that the nation is standing very much behind that. Why? Because they kind of sat on the fence previously. So performance gives them the ability to kind of voice their true patriotic standpoint.
Musa Kalenga, I want to let you get back to your pub car. Thank you very much for joining us. Always a pleasure. Musa Kalenga from the agency Manati Fellas. Coming up on the program, how the multi-million rand Gautrain plans to advertise itself.